What's up, guys? My name is Miles.
And my name is Fez.
And this is The Commodity. And today we're reacting to Geography Now, Australia.
And before we hop into this or move on, I guess, I don't know. We do have a new member that we do want to give a shout out. So the name is going to be really hard for me to say. I'm definitely going to put it right here. But my guess is Kwaseku Kumera.
Kwaseku Kumera.
So I appreciate it. So on level ones, they get basically more than anything, it helps us out. I'm not going to sit here and lie and be like you get a whole lot of stuff from it. But basically what it is if we have an opportunity, it's been raining like crazy here. Mm-hmm. But if we have an opportunity, we go out and vlog and we try to put out some stuff for level 1 and level 2. Now, if you decide that you want to do level 2, we try to put out, now if we have our kids or whatever, I mean, some situations don't allow us to put out a video a little early, kind of like today. Yeah. We will give level 2 early access to videos. So if you want to join, just hit the join button down by the subscription button.
And thank you.
Yes, very much. Thank you so much.
Yes, so thank you.
Let's go ahead and
we truly appreciate it.
All right, everybody, let's just all get it off of our chests. Koalas and kangaroos, boomerangs, didgeridoos, Sydney, Melbourne, Uluru, crocodiles, cockadoos, everything that will kill you, shrimp on Barbies, that's not true, that Vegemite stuff that tastes like poo, coral reefs and platypuses, platypi, what's the plural of platypus? All right, now let's actually learn about the freaking country.
It's time to learn geography now!
Hey everybody, I'm your host, Paul Barbato.
Platypi.
Is that what he said?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's platypi. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. Probably.
Platypuses. I don't know.
Let us know in the comments if you know.
Today's going to be Australia.
We're not looking it up.
You know the drill. Let's dissect the flag. The Australian flag has a blue field with a Union Jack on the upper hoist corner to represent that it was a former colony and a current Commonwealth of the United Kingdom, with a large star under it representing the Commonwealth, and the 5 stars on the right, the Alpha, Beta, Gamma, Delta, Epsilon, Crucis, to the right representing the Southern Cross constellation. All right, that was fun. Now let's discuss about the borders. Now, obviously, as an island nation, or rather large one, but still an island, Australia doesn't have any borders with any other nations, but that doesn't...
Does that not make them the largest archipelago?
I would think so.
And the largest island nation in the world?
Yeah. But they're not.
I think they technically are. It's just, it's an unfair comparison because they are also...
A continent.
So, it's a...
Yeah, because I thought Indonesia was the largest.
It's the largest archipelago, and the Philippines is the largest island, pure island nation. Mm-hmm. So, y'all just got squashed by Australia. Not really.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Mean that Australia doesn't have some rather intriguing parameters. The country divides itself up in a rather intriguing way. Like the US, Australia has states, not provinces. There is a difference. 6 of them, and each one kind of has their own little flair and quirks, like Tasmania, known for being crazy. Where things get a little interesting, though, are the territories. Australia has 3 domestic internal territories and 6 overseas territories. Technically 7 if you include the Australian Antarctic territory, even though the Antarctic Treaty kind of bans anybody from claiming Antarctic soil as their own, which we will find out in future episodes that a lot of countries do a wonderful job at ignoring. The 3 internal territories are Northern Territory, Capital Territory, which is basically just the capital city of Canberra and some extra space around it, and the confusing little tyke Jervis Bay Territory. Jervis Bay was bought and developed to give the inland capital Canberra access to the sea, and eventually Jervis Bay split from the capital. However, it's still counted as part of the capital in elections. It's a little confusing, even though it really doesn't have much going for it, except for a small Navy base and beaches that it kind of took from other neighboring towns. The most dramatic border area would have to be the middle of Australia. For years, this slab of land didn't exactly quite know how to distinguish itself and has gone through 4 transitions in the past century. First, it was all South Australia, which didn't quite make sense because parts of it touched the northern parts of Australia, so it split into 2, 1 state and 1 territory. Then for 4 years, it became South Australia and 2 territories, the new one being called Central Australian Territory. Then finally it changed its mind and went back to being Northern Territory. Central Australia is kind of like your girlfriend at a restaurant. What do you want?
Yeah.
What do you want? It's not that simple! Finally, we reach the overseas territories. Although Australia has over 8,000 islands under its sovereignty, 6 of these islands operate as distinct territories, some of which sustain themselves with permanent populations. They are Ashmore and Cartier, the Cocos or Keelings Islands, Coral Sea Islands.
This is confusing me now.
Yeah.
That's more islands than the Philippines.
Yeah.
And I believe more islands than, or close to the same amount of islands as Indonesia.
Huh. I don't know what to believe anymore.
I don't either. It's a lot of islands.
It's a lot of islands.
The Heard and McDonald Islands, and the popular holiday spot,
I like
Norfolk
McDonald's.
Island, and the pleasant Christmas Island that gets attacked by huge coconut crabs every year. Finally, Australia
Can you
is
eat
home to
coconut crabs?
arguably
Let's
the
go.
most micronations in the world. Places like the Principality of Wye, Rainbow Creek, the Empire of Atlantium, and more. These nations were developed by either small groups of people or a single person because they were doing things like protesting taxes and wanted to claim autonomy, or they were just kind of bored and decided to amuse themselves. But still, hey, they tried. All right, now let's talk about the landscape, shall we? Okay, not all of Australia is a desert, okay? Only about 35%. Okay, so besides Antarctica, Australia is the driest continent on the planet, which explains why, yes, 85% of the population lives along the edges of the country within 50 kilometers of the coast. Nonetheless, a lot of places, specifically around the coasts, actually have very temperate and even tropical landscapes.
Fun fact, I think that's about the same statistic for the U.S.
Yeah?
I mean, I think that's probably almost the statistic for every country
Yeah, I
in
mean,
general.
everybody wants to
Like,
live near
if
the
you
water
do
because
Canada, well, it has to do with job opportunities.
that's
and
what I
stuff
was
like
saying, yeah.
that. But if you look at like Canada, I think they said like 98% of their entire population lives on the southern border next to the United States.
Yeah.
So, and then the U.S. is some high number because you got to think geologically.
Well, Canada could be that way too because it's much colder than the higher you go.
They
I think.
like it. Don't be a wimp. Live in that cold. I'm not.
I'm not.
By the north, you find tropical zones and wetlands and rainforests. By the far edges on the east and west, you can find subtropical zones with lighter forests and plains. A little bit inland, close to the interior, you find grasslands and flat stretches of semi-arid terrain. In the southeast by Sydney, you find temperate, cooler, arid land with semi-tropical, yet slightly dry areas with an abundance of trees and plants. Then, of course, you have Tasmania, which is on a completely different level of green. Then we reach the deep interior where we hit the great deserts like the Great Victoria and the Great
just looks like
Sandy
West
Deserts.
Texas.
This area is famously known as the Outback.
The Outback.
The Outback is essentially the area of Australia with long open
make
stretches
steaks.
of red and orange desert that lays out
And
beyond the
blooming
horizon
onions.
with few sparse populations of people that can be found anywhere. It has a dry, rocky, rugged terrain that everybody assumes is teeming with a variety of poisonous insects and reptiles, and, well, I mean, it kind of is, but still, there's more to it than just that. Oh, and don't forget Lake Hillier, that strange lake that is mysteriously naturally pink for some strange
That's
reason
dope.
that baffles science.
That is really cool.
However, I assume if we go in,
We might not come out.
no, we come out with like superpowers.
Oh. Yeah.
So we should go in.
You only have those two options. You either don't come out or you do come out with superpowers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or you could just swim and enjoy it. I don't know. Let us know
I'm
in the
sure they
comments.
might tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah.
Scientists. Now, if there's one thing that really epitomizes Australia, it would have to be its world-renowned beaches and coasts. People flock from all over the world just to enjoy the beautiful, pristine atmosphere of a real, authentic Australian beach. Just remember to put on your sunscreen, though. Australians actually kind of have a joke where they can tell who the ignorant tourists are. It's usually the ones who think they'll be totally fine sitting out in the sun for more than 20 minutes. Skin cancer rates are actually exceptionally high in Australia, and the population has acknowledged the precautions that they need to take. Now, we all know that Australia is home to some of the most unique and curiously distinct animal species in the world not found anywhere else. However, Australia is also known as the home of many feral species. Australia has over 50 invasive species that were brought over to the land from areas mostly in Europe, and over the course of nearly 1.5 centuries have bred and spread like wildfire all over the
Okay, so based on this, rabbits.
A lot of
Yeah, we have a
food.
lot of feral rabbits here too. Now, cattle, or whatever that thing is, an ox of some sort, or water buffalo, or not really sure what it is.
Probably good food.
Yeah, that's the way I look at it.
And frog legs.
Frog legs.
Those might be like the most poisonous frogs in the world
That's
that were brought
true.
over. I don't know.
But if you take those to Louisiana, it instantly becomes lunch.
oh yeah.
the country. Animals like the European rabbit, red fox, water buffaloes,
I was
ghost
right,
pigs,
water
even
buffalo.
camels, and worst of all, the famous cane toad. They've all gone wild and have cost the Australian government billions of dollars in environmental damages and maintenance. Yeah, I don't really know how to transition.
They
into
had the
demographics from
Great
this part,
Llama.
so
It was a Llama
here's
Wars.
demographics.
It's pretty intense. I
Today,
think it's
Australia
llama.
has a population of about 23 million people. Now, to many outsiders, Australia is kind of known as the place where the British sent their prisoners. First of all, that's rude. Second of all, that's only like kind of half true. Yes, during the early years of Australia's colonization from the UK, droves of convicts were sent to penal colonies in Botany Bay, which is now in present-day Sydney. Over 165,000 convicts, about 25,000 of which were women, were sent over the course of 80 years. Although the British weren't the first ones to discover Australia, it was actually the Dutch. As they came, they named the land New Holland and the adjacent island next door New Zealand after the province of Zeeland in the Netherlands. However, as we'll soon discover, the Dutch were really good at discovering places, but kind of not so good at colonizing and maintaining those places for themselves. However, most of Australia's population came from natural colonization from British non-convict nationals. Some would argue that Australia was kind of like the UK's version of Operation Backup Plan in case of America goes crazy. After the American Revolution, the UK tried to compensate for lost colonies by re-establishing new ones, and Australia was hot on the list. About 85% of the population is European. Asians make up the next largest minority of about 12%, mostly coming from China and India and other Southeast Asian countries like Vietnam and the Philippines. And by the way, yes, Australia does have black people, not many, but before the Federation began, Africans, mostly from sub-Saharan countries like South Africa, Mauritius, Zimbabwe, and Sudan, have historically resided in Australia. It wasn't until the 60s when African assistance programs allowed many Africans to study and eventually move to Australia. Today, they make up about 1% of the population. One demographic of people
That's a
that
very
commonly
small
gets overlooked though
percentage.
would
Yeah.
have to be the native Australians, commonly known as the Aborigines, which make up about 3% of the population. Aborigines are a very unique and distinct people group that come from hundreds of different tribes, each with their own language and dialect, spread throughout the north, south, and central regions. Today, Aboriginal rights are a huge hot-button topic in Australian legislation, and about 22% of the land of northern Australia is Aboriginal owned. In 2013, Aboriginal groups actually banded together and decided to kind of make their own little state called the Murrawarri Republic, independent from Australia. The Australian government, though, doesn't really recognize this claim and just kind of brushes it off with a meh, as long as you don't cause a civil war attitude. Well, as you can see, a lot of people have come to live in Australia, but now let's see how Australia interacts with the rest of the world. Australia is, let's just put it very simply, a very popular country. If this was high school, Australia would be on the top of the social ladder, hands down.
Yeah.
Everybody knows something about
For sure.
Australia. When it comes to friends, though, Australia not only goes for the cool kids, but also the strategic ones. Of course, Australia gets along with many of its Asian neighbor nations, specifically China and India, as large numbers of people from those nations live in Australia, and they do great business
I did
with
not
them
know
as
that.
well. Australia gets along pretty well with the islands of Oceania, except Fiji. In 2006, Australia refused
No water
to
for
back
you.
up a military coup that overthrew the government in Fiji, and since then, things have been a little weird between
Such
the
a
two
tiny
countries.
place to
In
not
terms
like.
of their best friends, though, of course, New Zealand would have to rank in the top level, and they are basically like siblings that share a very similar culture, language, and histories as former
And
colonies.
almost now.
Whereas the UK also has a high priority on Australia's entourage, as they make up the largest demographic of people ethnically and as migrants in the country. But finally, we reach the USA. The USA and Australia kind of have a little crush on each other.
Yeah.
Australia is always there to back up the US in times when allies are necessary, and the US, well, I mean, we Americans, we just love Australians. We love their accents. We
The
love
best
their
accent in the
culture,
world. I don't
we
care what
love their
anybody says. I love it.
accents, We love their spunky Australian attitude, and we love their sexy, sexy accents. Almost
Yeah,
any Australian
the
that
best
comes to the
accent,
US is
yeah.
immediately loved and welcome, even if they are slightly sociopathic. One sentence with that accent, and we are smitten. We love you, Australia.
We
in
do.
conclusion, Australia is just everybody loves Australia. Stay tuned. Austria is coming up next.
Yeah, I was curious if they were going to mention the accent because I was
Yeah.
like, so while I was going to college, I drove Uber and Lyft full time, and I gave a lot of Australians rides, a lot, and I think their accent, generally speaking, some of them have a little lighter accent, just like Brits.
Yeah.
Some of them have very posh, I would say, accents. Some have, because their accents are like in England, their accents are so diverse. Even in like London, like northern London to South London,
Yeah.
they're so different. And that's one city. It's like going to New York and having and go to South New York and it has like a Louisiana accent. It just doesn't exist even in New York. So, but in Australia, you know, you can almost catch on almost every time. But it's funny because, you know, in Dallas, I'd give them rides and like, it's so hot here. I'm like, you're from a desert.
Right.
What are you talking about? It's hot. If I
know.
went there, I would probably fry. And they're
I've
like,
got a
it's
fried
different."
sunburn right now.
It's because we have humidity.
Yeah.
Is what it is. Now I was like, if you go to West Texas, South Texas, towards San Antonio, you'll probably be right at home because it's super dry, no water, you know. But no, I mean, Australia is definitely one of those places I want to visit and be in the touristy stuff.
Oh yeah.
Because I do not want to go venture out into the Outback. I don't care how good their steaks are. I don't want to go out there.
No, I agree. Like going to Asia and things like that, those are the places that I want to
Start the venture.
but do things that are non-touristy. But with Australia,
Unless I'm with somebody very, like,
familiar with
familiar.
the place.
Like, I would take Bear Grylls with me.
Yeah.
Like, let's go to the Outback area or whatever.
Yeah.
Because I don't even do that here in Texas.
Oh, I don't
We
either.
were just talking about that yesterday about how it's funny. We were talking about Australia yesterday.
Yeah.
Not even talking about videos or anything like that. We were just talking about how
Poisonous animals.
And then I was like, I wonder how many we have. And we have a lot too. Nothing like Australia.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, we have a lot of stuff that will kill you. Granted, a lot of it's not in the cities. Some of it is. But it's usually like West Texas because it is our outback. Really.
Yeah.
I mean, until you get into oil areas, there's nobody.
Yeah.
So if you have any other videos that y'all would like us to take a look at, we definitely love the idea of looking further into Australia culture, accents, culture. Please let us know down in the comments. You can also send it to us to our Discord. Link will be down in the description.
And if you like this video, click the like button, click the subscribe button.
With that accent.
Yeah.
I don't know how that works. But anyways, with that being said,
My name's Miles.
and my name is Fez.
Thanks for watching, guys.
Peace.
Out.